Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. Hi, welcome. Welcome. Hello, technical glitch there. I'm glad we're back. Hey, grab your tea, join in. Thank you for joining. What are y'all sipping on? Let me know. Where are you tuning in from? What are you sipping on? Thank you for the like. I appreciate you. Been waiting for this topic. Can't wait. Hey, Linda. But I'm excited to cover it with you. So get ready. This light is bright. um, yeah, this is one that I think is going to be enlightening because we're going to be covering love languages, but from the perspective of having been emotionally injured in the past, right? So having an understanding of how a love language can be seen when we have histories, which is important, right? We don't always come in with a clean slate, and a love language is just an easy way to love us. It's just a roadmap for how to love us in the best way while also taking into consideration the multiple ways in which we have experienced love in the past. Um, I did complete my writing process for my book, yes. So thank you for asking that. And so eventually it will be out into the world. So hopefully I'll have more details on that in the months to come. And let's talk about love languages, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for also telling me that you want to talk about this topic or that you want me to cover it. I think it's one that I hadn't considered at all in all of these years that I've been doing this work. And I'm really happy that I listened in to our last live and to, what feels relevant and pertinent to you and your experience around relationships. And this topic's making me really excited. And so I'm excited to get into it with y'all. But what are y'all drinking? Anybody sipping on tea? Last week we had a lot of water drinkers, and I'm here for that water life too, because we need to stay hydrated, and hydration is actually really essential for how we also feed our bodies. And um, it does in many ways connect to also how we hold our mood throughout the day. So I'm all here for that hydration life. And also, if you're sipping on some tea, let me know in the comment section. Love languages. I love this topic. I see you're not active. I am active on TikTok. I have 2 TikTok accounts. I have Dr. Mariel Bouquet and I have Dr. Bouquet _ in Espanol. So dandelion tea. Okay. Nice. Fancy. I thought about snipping some dandelions and actually making my own tea from them. So pretty neat that's what you're sipping on. Anybody else out there with just Earl Grey? Earl Grey is fabulous. Upset stomach. Oh, I'm so sorry. Ginger. I'm not gonna make any wild suggestions out here, but I usually sip on ginger tea whenever my stomach's upset. Let's get into this, y'all. So for anybody who isn't familiar with the love languages and really kind of some of its history, right? The love languages that we now hold to be the 5 major love languages really came from Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages, and the book that Gary had created around this. I'm not entirely sure if the Gottmans and other people that are couples related type of people in the field of psychology or relationships, if they had any kind of prior initiations of how we desire to be loved, and then that got extracted in some way, and then it was produced by Gary as the 5 Love Languages. But that is the more popular book and popular text that's out there that we have as a point of reference, really kind of in this world around the more fixed versions of how we desire to be loved and how we desire to love other people. The live got paused? I hope not. Shoot me a thumbs up or like if you can still see me, if you can hear me. I'm blessed to hear him speak live at my daughter's school. Thank you for the thumbs up. I think if I'm paused, it may be a connection issue. Could be on your end. I'm not sure if it's on mine, but thank you for the green heart. Can see and hear you. Thank you, y'all. Okay. Alrighty. So I'll just keep going. You're active, no pause. I appreciate y'all. So let's talk about these love languages. So the 5 that were created were acts of service, words of affirmation, gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And the ways that I like to look at all of these love languages are as partial roadmaps, not global roadmaps as to how we desire to be loved. Because to be frank, humans are so incredibly complex that there is no real way that we can simply apply one love language to any one person. And also, because we're ever evolving, there are possibilities that our love languages could evolve as well. We can evolve in our values, and with our values evolving and with our personalities evolving, that could mean that our love languages shift. The same can happen for the things that happen to us in life. If we have events that happen to us in reference to relationships, if we have traumatic incidents that happen to us in reference to relationships, then there is a likely chance that the ways that we desire to be loved are going to be fairly different than they were in times past. So I like to look at the 5 love languages as less fixed and more fluid, and also as roadmaps that can help you to at least initiate the ways that you can love upon a person in a better, more profound way, but not in a way that's fixed. There's room for growth. I love that. Yes, it's a really beautiful way of stating it. My love languages have shifted. My husband is consistency. So we have like variable ways in which love languages can show up in one relationship. And so that is why, in part, like I am expressing to all of you that we can leave room for flexibility. It allows us to also like get creative in the whole process of being in a relationship with someone else. And that can be something that can be helpful and healing and for both of you, right? That you don't have this like fixed mindset around how you initiate and engage in the process of loving upon one another, but you can be fluid and you can get creative in that fluidity. Gratitude does miracles. Yes, it does. So, why do we talk about love languages in the context of mental health? Part of the reason why is because when we feel like our love languages aren't seen or they're not appreciated, and that we are not appreciated as people that flow from one love language to another, that can cause a lot of discord. It can cause a lot of miscommunication. And when trauma has entered the building, when you have relational trauma, you have a bad breakup, or you have a relationship that felt pretty traumatic, or that it left you with a lot of fragments of emotional hurt, then you're going to want to be seen and want to be heard and want to be loved in a way that helps you to also experience some element of healing, right? And that's when we can get really crafty about how we can use the love languages in that way. But first, let me get into a little bit more about what they are, just so that we can have a bit more of an understanding of each of the love languages, especially in reference to having had experiences in the past that haven't felt so healthy. So, and by the way, if anybody wants to take a love language quiz, I'm sure that there's a lot of them out there. I believe the Gottman Institute may have one because they're very couple centered. But the 5 Love Languages book also has, it has a quiz within it, if I'm not mistaken. Last I read it, which was years ago, but it does have a book with a quiz within it that you can take, that your partner can take, that people that you love and want to learn how to love can take. And so there's that resource there for all of you. Um, so acts of service. Acts of service is the love language that basically states that people either love for they love to actually do something on behalf of someone else or do something for someone else. And that service is actually something that can really feed their soul. So they feel really good about giving. And they're a giver and they, don't expect anything in return. Um, Usually that's a way that a person, expresses love by giving. Remember, love languages can go in either direction. So some people love for to be given to in reference to acts of service, if that's the love language that they desire to receive. And when we see an infraction happen in relationships, like if a person gives too much, if the relationship is 80-20, and that causes a person to feel enclosed and no longer want to give because they gave so much that it became so exhausting that it produced like a relational trauma for them. Um, the conversation that I think can be had around that is around reigniting their desire to either be someone that can be of service or be someone that can be a healthy recipient of love. So the conversations, they can be personalized to whatever, relationship you have with that person. But I always like to guide people in the direction of like having the conversation to open up that channel again. And opening up that channel also means that you're working through some of the hurt and damage that was situated in that area. For other people, the love language of preference is words of affirmation. And words of affirmation is not just like saying something nice to someone, but sometimes it's being able to show a person that you appreciate them and expressing the appreciation, expressing gratitude for that person. Some people are love to love by way of words of affirmation, and there'll be those people that love you by way, and they're always like saying something like really kind and loving to you because that's the way that they give love. And words of affirmation is typically really important for, especially for people who grew up feeling like they weren't told, I love you, that they weren't told that they were appreciated, that they didn't feel seen in their homes. Typically, people that fall within the range of those experiences tend to feel like words of affirmation feel very holding, and they feel profound love by way of experiencing words of affirmation from the people that want to love them. Um, is there a connection between love languages and attachment styles? I think I'm gonna make a video about that I'm gonna post later on, but it's a wonderful question. Um, let me get into the next love language, which is gifts. Gifts is um, receiving something that is tangible. Typically, it doesn't have to be, in physical form, but in some way that there is something that can be held, either electronically, non-electronically, but there is something that is a gift that is produced in a physical form that is given to a person. And typically with the love language of gifts, people that have had experiences in the past where what they have received has been with the bare minimum, especially if they're, kids and didn't necessarily receive a lot of like things that were in the physical form earlier in life, tend to really hold on to this love language later on. Um, Also, sometimes people that were not recipients early on in life or in early relationships tend to be like givers or overgivers. We can talk for an extended time, about what being like an overgiver, what that really means, right? Like, because that's really nuanced, but being someone that either provides gifts or receives gifts tends to be like the general like kind of concept around that love language. And then we have quality time. And quality time is basically like being able to spend time with a person. And quality is, yet again, another nuance, right? Quality time with a person may be that you're just present and that you're physically there. Quality time with someone could be, being really mindful, like not having your phone or not attending to your phone and being completely present with that person. Quality time could be, just being like on the phone with someone, but the fact that they have your attention and that you're present and that you're there is something that is the highlight of that love language. When it comes to traumatic experiences in the past, more often than not, like people that have felt really alone in relationships. And if we take it back to childhood, children that were either neglected or weren't really attended to emotionally a lot by the individuals in their home or in their community can very well like lean in the direction of wanting quality time because that's something that is still a deep desire that they didn't receive, right? And so that love language can have, of course, a healthy form, right? And sometimes it can just be feeding that inner child experience that a person didn't necessarily get. They spent too much time alone. Perhaps they spent a lot of time being emotionally and psychologically neglected. And as a result, quality time is a way that they feel like, oh, you really do love me. Like you truly do care. So it becomes, a very prominent way in which they like to receive love. Or the messaging around quality time is if someone gives me their time, they love me. So I'm going to give somebody a lot of my time because that's the way that I am deciding that I want to love them, because that's a way that I believe that a person loves another person. Yeah, I think that's how I want to explain that. I'm thinking like, is there a better way? Yeah, that feels like a right way to explain it. So the quality time love language, of course, like the others, can be receiving or giving. And so that's something to consider. And then there's physical touch. And physical touch can be so many things. Like it doesn't have to be, full intimacy. It can be, like holding someone's hand. It can be caressing someone a certain way. And a person feeling like they're appreciated in that way and that there's presence that can be really felt by way of touch. However, for some people whose nervous system have been hijacked by traumatic touch, they can feel like physical touch is a prominent way in which they desire to be loved, but they have that experience in their past that has made it so that physical touch becomes very complicated. So for individuals that have had those traumatic experiences, the love language can be more complex, and what it requires, yet again, is communication about what feels like the right touch, what feels like the right pressure around touch, so that a person can feel at ease with that physical touch element. And of course, consent is always a good idea. Consent should always be in place. And so with any of these, like I wanted to produce at least like one way of looking at it from the perspective of where do we like gain some of these love languages. In the book, The Five Love Languages, there are ways that Gary Chapman like explains like how we came to experience the love languages. But I think the angle that I like to take around it is the mental health and also the what has happened in the past that has also contributed to you developing or wanting to be loved in this way, or you wanting to love somebody else in this way. Because I think that that's that one dimension that we may not be thinking about as much in reference to love languages, which is really, really important. There was a recent article, I think from like 2 or 3 years ago, that I read that spoke to like what the 6 love languages. And I thought it was really interesting. It was by a licensed marriage and family therapist. And she had mentioned that the sixth love language is actually the language of safety. And I like to say that maybe that love language is really key in having within all of the other love languages. A person needs to feel a sense of safety to be the recipient of love, and a person needs to feel a sense of safety in order to give love freely. But the safety that Robin was mentioning within that article was in reference to just feeling like you can trust a person, and you feeling like you can open up the channels of love to be able to receive in the ways that you desire and to be able to give in the ways that you desire. So I really loved and appreciated that perspective of safety being that missing love language in the initial love languages, because that is a really integral part of how we forge deep connections with people. And within safety, we can also experience deeper levels of vulnerability, which allow us to, whenever any of the other 5 love languages have been disrupted in some way, we can open those channels back up and refine the ways that we desire to be loved, and refine the ways that we desire to love someone else. So that's deep. The love language of safety. Yeah, it's actually, I think, really critical in the conversation of love languages. So I wanted to propose it here and just like, provide you all with that point of insight that I learned, to see, just how you can mull that over in reference to your own respective relationships, and in reference to how you desire to be loved, and also in reference to where you feel like, there's something going on in reference to how you're loving in this day and age. Like, if you feel like love isn't really kind of feeling the ways that it used to feel, then it's healthy to think about whether or not there's been like something that's happened that's disrupted safety, and think about how to regain safety so that you can feel like a safe love connection that can allow you to then explore the other 5 love languages. Um, any thoughts, any questions? I'm going to look at, some of these comments, and hopefully, if there's any questions, I can answer them in the last few minutes we have together. So, words of affirmation is really important to me. I see some of you, there's a lot of words of affirmation here. You hit that one on the head, orchestrated very eloquently for such a fragile topic. Thank you. That was a very eloquent way of stating that. Why do one feel uncomfortable receiving gifts from people? So the lack of comfort, I mean, it's as nuanced as I think what I would want someone to do if I were working with them is for them to explore what happened and what transpired in the area of receiving gifts that may have created some sort of a discomfort, right? Like, so what's the origin story of why you're uncomfortable around receiving gifts? Like, referencing back in time to the moments when you received gifts when you were younger, or when you were in, those initial relationships that you had, and thinking about what transpired, what happened, and of course doing so, like by grounding and maybe working with a professional, and just in case it brings up anything that could create more discomfort. But I think it's a healthy self-reflection. So in essence, I'm kind of like flipping that question back at you, really. Must you meet all the needs of your partner's love language for a relationship to work? I actually don't believe that it's healthy for anybody to put themselves in the frame of mind of having to be the one to meet their love needs fully. Like, it's unrealistic, but it's also a perfect recipe for codependence. So I believe that we can just learn the best ways to love someone with that fluidity in there, and do our best to try and provide them as much love in their love language, and also vary it up, because we may want to express love in a different way that isn't reflective of their love language, and that's okay too. I think that it allows for fluidity on both sides, for them to be fluid in how they receive love, you to be fluid in how you give it, and so for all of that to be in the mix. That makes sense. Thank you. You're so welcome. Okay, if there are no other thoughts or questions, we're gonna go ahead and end at the 30-minute mark. That's deep. Yeah, I think it's deep and healthy. We are responsible for our own happiness. I do wholeheartedly believe that, and I believe that whoever comes into our lives, should be adding to that joy. But hopefully we already have a filled cup by the time we're connecting with others. And if that's not the case, which is the case for probably most of us, then at least they can be filling that cup with us. But we are in part fairly responsible for the happiness that we embody, and what the work that we do in order to maintain happiness in our lives. Yes. Alrighty, y'all. I hope y'all, take really good care. And after this live, that, you do some self-care, that you feel grounded and filled and enlightened and all the things. And of course, come back to this live recording whenever, because I'll be posting in a couple minutes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Take care.